go. And welcome back to episode 14 of the New Generation Challenge podcast, talking about all things the Challenge 40 Battle of the Eras. We are your hosts. My name's Brett Parnell.
Titi Fernandez.
And welcome back. Titi, what's your overall thoughts of how this week went? And I guess now we're really looking at the end of the game coming up.
Yeah, I first want to hear from you because since the last time we just talked, you went to the Eras tour and I just want to hear how that was and how it all went.
That was absolutely amazing. As you would know, for the audience who don't know, TT and I have both seen Taylor this summer twice. Her once in Europe and once in the States, me once in Europe and once in Canada. So, we're both pretty big fans.
Yeah,
But
I'm really well.
no, it was amazing. Um, I mean, the whole show, anybody that's a Swiftie knows it pretty much at this point.
Mhm.
But when I was there, she brought Gracie Abrams, who was the opener, back out during the surprise songs, and they performed us for the first time together live on stage,
Wow,
which
I
was
saw.
such a great moment. Hopefully, I can say I got to see the first live performance of the future um, duo of the year at this year's Grammys because they're both nominated for that for the same song.
Yeah, and I remember I saw on Twitter that Gracie Abrams did not perform us, and she usually does,
Yeah,
obviously by herself, during her opening act. So that's
we
awesome
kind
that
of
you.
we kind of all predicted it because like all the other Swifties in my section, we were just like, wait, she changed up the set list. She's not performing. She didn't do the speech about like here's a song I wrote with Taylor for my last song of the night. She
Yeah.
said, let's try something new. And we're like, oh my God, this is gonna be amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome that you kind of got to predict it and then
Yeah.
see how it would all went down.
And then like I've seen it before, like you have, but see I'm sure you had kind of the same experience too between Germany and New Orleans and me with London to Toronto. Seeing it in the winter indoors is like that whole new experience because you have all the lights and the special effects literally from Miss Americana and not from like halfway through the show.
Yeah, and I also I don't know, it was probably similar in Toronto, but I remember obviously when I went in Germany, it was an amazing time.
Yeah.
But I think the atmosphere when she's back in North America is just different. Not
Yeah.
to say that the Swift as great in Europe, but I think that her performing in America, I think more people knew her songs, like the surprise songs and stuff like that. So I don't know. I think I definitely like my second time around better than my
Nice.
first.
Yeah, that's a good point. For I guess from our perspective, it was probably a bit different because you saw her in a country where English isn't the first language. The fact that I saw her in Europe, but it was
Mm-hmm.
in London. I've been to London at this point about 6, 7 times in my life. I've never seen London just feel so much like Texas. Like half that, 2/3 of that crowd was probably Americans, even at Wembley. So,
Yeah, that's true. We didn't have that many Americans in ours,
mm,
because just from talking to people and stuff, they're
yeah,
all German. But
makes sense.
anyways, I'm really glad that you went and you had a great time.
And my cousin is going tomorrow, so I'm still so jealous already.
Wow, that's awesome. But getting back to my initial thoughts of the episode, um, I think like we said and or like you've mentioned, I've mentioned, we're just kind of getting down to the final numbers. Like after this episode, we have five males and six females after the next episode. And for us that I didn't know this until or I didn't see this posted anywhere until today, but there's not gonna be an episode next week
Yeah,
because of Thanksgiving or
that I
whatever.
know
But
I mentioned last week and thought it was this week, but I don't, shows me how much I know about the American calendar.
but yeah, we're just getting down to the last few numbers and
Which I guess
after.
now that you mention, I should, I guess, kind of point out just for the audience to know. We're not getting an episode next week. 2 weeks from now, I'm going to be on vacation. So I would guess we'll try to like record it sometime when I get back, but it'll probably be late, kind of like maybe depending on, well, I guess there'll still be 5 players left, but at that point, we'll be more looking at like a preview of the last episode and previewing the final. Um, by the time I get home, because I'll be out of the country until the Saturday of the week that the next episode is.
Yeah, and another interesting thing is we just had a males elimination. If the final fol if it follows the patterns of pretty much all the finals, there's gonna be 4 males, 4 females in the final, so that means probably the next men's elimination that we see is gonna be our last male elimination before the final. So,
And I
I don't know,
mean,
I
we'll
think
see what this preview showed, but who knows if there's even going to be a men's elimination?
yeah, honestly, I
Because
don't
we
know.
don't know if somebody is therefore getting thrown straight into elimination or if they're getting kicked out of the game at this point.
Yeah, which I think it'll be interesting to see that next week, but just to get this episode that we just watched, we start off Michelle coming back from her elimination win against Olivia. And we know that was probably bittersweet because obviously there's a lot of highs in winning an elimination, but at the same time, that was her number one and her best friend, even outside of the game. So I think I can see how that was difficult for her.
Yeah, absolutely. It would be very difficult. I think we've kind of got that vibe from Michelle and Olivia in this episode, well, like in last episode, but even going before that, like we've already seen Devin go home, we've already seen Theo go home, and they pretty much have each other in a house that's being dominated by someone that I just would not want to live with. So
Yeah, and another thing I thought it was interesting from this scene, and it kind of pissed me off a little bit because we heard the way that Jenny was talking about Michelle last episode, especially in the club when she was saying that Michelle doesn't have integrity and all these things. But the first person that we see cheering and clapping for her when she's coming back from the election is her.
yeah,
Which one is it? You know,
yeah,
she's
exactly.
being really fake.
Yeah, I would see that. I honestly think with Jenny at this point that she just doesn't really know. She's just focused on trying to physically get herself to the end of the game, and we'll see if it works or not. But it's
Mm-hmm.
definitely a difficult strategy to push to play with. But at the same time, if there's anybody that can run that strategy in the challenge, it's probably Jenny.
Yeah, honestly, just due to her pure size, I think. Moving on, unless you have anything else, I just have that we see Michelle, Cara, and Derek kind of have a conversation together, and Derek is telling, well, first we see Cara and Michelle, like Michelle again is just feeling down about sending Olivia home, and Cara is like consoling her and also just telling her like what you've done is super badass and like you should be really proud of yourself.
Yeah,
And we also see that Derek tells those girls like, you guys, like I don't have anybody else like
yeah,
who I'm protecting. And again, it goes to show that we don't really get to see how deep Derek and Michelle's friendship truly is. And like that's probably a big reason that she chose to not nominate or to not nominate him as a target and chose to nominate Corey instead.
yeah, absolutely. I really love this scene. I thought just based on what I knew outside the game from social media and from interacting with the players in real life at fan events, I'm like, we are clearly missing relationships between Michelle and Olivia and Derek and Cara, notably like with them just not showing Michelle and Olivia really with Derek or with Cara when I've picked up over the season that they've become close just by the way that they've all talked about each other and interacted with each other
Mm-hmm.
in person. When you This was from Challenge Mania in Atlanta, but you could tell that that group was like all really close, and it wasn't just Michelle and Olivia though. It included Derek, it included Ryan. They all had amazing things to say about Cara and about Tori. Um, Devin and Theo, of course. So I'm glad we're starting to get to see that. It'll be interesting to see where that goes for the rest of the season. Maybe they could fit some new alliances in. No matter where it goes, the fact that we're kind of getting this opening up, I really liked both with Michele and Derek, and then also later in the episode with Tori and Cara, which are two players that I think the fan base has kind of seen be at odds with each other all the time. I don't really know how much there was to that. I know people have
Mm-hmm.
talked about Tori wanting to win, and that affected Kara's position in the game. I've seen Kara talk about vaccination mandates online, so therefore I'm pretty sure that's why she didn't get a call for the last couple of years, and now her traveling to other countries is completely fine, but people like to blame other challengers instead of blaming the world that we live in.
Yeah, I mean, I think because we don't really know why Kara was not on for the last, like, what, 5 years, but I've seen some discourse over Polly and Bananas. I remember, I think Morgan, Bananas' ex, did a podcast and she kind of confirmed that she was present for some phone calls that Bananas made to MTV saying, if you cast Polly, I'm not gonna go, or
Mm,
something like that. And then that kind of probably turned into Cara saying, I'm not gonna do it if you're not gonna cast Polly, which is kind of what I've heard. But again, we don't really know why she was gone for so long, but we do see like during Dirty 30, they actually worked together.
yeah.
It was her, Cara and Camilla were really close, and then Tori was also close with them. And then on War of the Worlds 2, we kind of see Tori and on complete opposite sides of Tori was with Jordan, Cara was with Polly, and they were just working against each other. So I think there's just some animosity that was there,
Yeah.
and it's
Uh,
really nice to see them be able to work through it.
Absolutely. I love seeing them be able to work through it. I do know that travel was probably an issue too, so you never know what to believe with Bananas. I mean, if you've been on social media just this afternoon, you know how over dramatic Bananas likes being. So who knows? Anything else you want to add in before we get to the daily?
I do want to add that there was a scene that we did not get to see last week, and I was kind of confused when we saw it because it was when Josh told Michelle at the club to nominate him as a target. You deserve to be in this final, blah blah. Because we didn't really get to see that last week. They didn't really
Yeah,
show that. So I was kind of confused if we saw that or not.
no,
And Bananas was mad at Josh nominating or for that he can nominate her. It was just kind of like it would happen anyways. Like have more control over the election, which I understand. But at the same time, I feel like Josh, you should never nominate for elimination or tell someone to win to elimination.
yeah.
Seeing
But I'm
how that.
also, to an extent, a little confused as to why Bananas is upset with Josh over this because, I mean, although they're working together, I think you and I have talked about Josh's elimination record how many times again? By winning the elimination, facts are facts, Michelle has all the power. And by her nominating Josh is kind of helping you, Johnny. She could nominate, well, I guess she couldn't nominate Jordan, but I mean, imagine if Michelle could have found a way to, like, let's say that Jordan wasn't a winner at that time and threw Bananas, Corey, and Jordan in against each other, and guess who would be going home out of those three?
I 100% agree. And I didn't even think of it like that because, again, we saw the elimination, which we'll get to, but I like imagine if Bananas would have gone in against Corey. He probably would have broken one of Bananas' bones,
Yeah,
if we're being honest. So like I feel like yes, you shouldn't let like I can see the point of view of I'm working with you, we're friends. I don't think that was the right move, but at the same time, as you are a target, so if there's a chance that you're gonna go in against anybody, you would probably want to go in against.
Yeah, for sure.
Uh, Nothing else other than that.
All right, so we are now at the annual truck elimination. I don't know about you. This one I really want to do.
I don't know if I would want to do this. I I feel like there's a lot of variables that you need to like think about, I guess, because it also depends on your size with how much momentum you're going to have when you're
Yeah,
swinging on there and like the timing of things because like if someone like Michelle is going at the same time as someone like Tori who's a lot bigger than her, like their timing is going to be different. So I feel like variables that maybe are outside of my control and I also just don't like heights. I don't like roller coasters. So this would not be
nice.
something I would be very excited about.
Fair enough. I mean, you are correct. I am about 220 pounds, so I would certainly think like my chances of being able to swing that far. But no, I just thought it looked so fun, and I mean, we'll get into the challenge later, but Derek proves that anybody can win a daily in this season. I don't, no disrespect to Derek, I don't think anybody saw that coming, that he would be tied and then in a tiebreaker. But I mean, crushing Bananas, crushing Corey, um, and on level terms with Jordan, which that's not an easy thing to do in this show.
We've also seen from Derek, I think his um, drag name was like Cherry or
Yeah,
we've seen he has a lot of like flexibility, I guess you could say. So if you think about it, like I can see like I would never Derek to beat someone like Jordan in this, especially head to head. But I think that this is something that kind of caters to his strengths of being flexible. So I don't know. I think that would be something to think about. But we saw that Corey, Bananas, and Josh coming in as targets, and Corey he got last on the daily last week. He has a one target penalty, so he can't one of his targets count out for it. But we also saw that females were struggling with this a lot more than the males just overall. Well, with the exception of Josh.
yeah. And I mean, even Josh came last, but he got 6 targets, which would have put him in second amongst the women.
True, yeah.
And I think a lot of that just has to do with both the heavier you are, the further you're going to swing on your safety rope. But also, um, of the guys that we have left, and Derek might be about the one option, the one difference here, and he wins it. I've met Derek. He's about the same size as me, but
Hmm.
in terms of height. But besides him, like we have probably all the big guys from this season that are all still in the game. Besides CT, of course.
Yeah,
I kind of
that's
forget
true.
CT was even on the season.
I know it's kind of a shame to
Yeah, it
see.
is. I would love to
Um,
still see CT here, wrapping Arrow 1 with Rachel.
and he would like be more in shape now because you know
Yeah,
how he does his thing of coming in out of shape and then
yeah,
coming back. But yeah, that's true. All the males were like there was no guy that was like super super small, I guess you would say.
yeah,
But again, with the females, we see Rachel just win by a very large margin. She just absolutely crushed that challenge for the females.
did she ever? And I mean, that's not much of a surprise here because this just seems to be a lot of skills that would go into this challenge seem to be things that I see Rachel doing when she's doing Rachel Fitness on Instagram. So I'm not shocked at all that she won this. I just want to say, even though we get that, like, Bananas being a complete ass once again, credit to Michelle. She beat both Aviv and Tori in this challenge, despite being much smaller than Tori.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I think she was kind of probably going through a cycle of like a mental warfare in a way, like
Yeah.
coming last on dailies or being sent into elimination. And I think after this last win, she was able to kind of have more trust in herself of like, okay, even if I keep getting sent in, even if I get last again, I can do it. I can win these eliminations. So I think her head is higher than it was. She's holding her head higher and she's just trusting herself more in these dailies, and it's resulting in her performing very well.
Yeah, absolutely. And at this point, we're probably into the final. Well, we're obviously in the final six girls. There's six left, but we're probably about 2 more weeks away from getting to the final. So Michele has a great shot coming in as one of the very few players. I mean, she might be the only female to never make a final. I'd have to, on this cast, I'd have to look at it. And is in a very good spot to make it there in that season where almost the vast majority, her, funny enough, now that I just say that, her and Amanda are the only two. uh,
Has
Interesting company.
Avery made a final?
Has she?
I don't think she has.
Okay,
I
so
think she
there's
only
a few,
did.
but um, that Michele looks like she's in a set position to go up against one of the strongest casts of women in the history of the show and potentially make a final or just barely get to one in it as a era 4 player that hasn't been around for very long.
Yeah, absolutely. I just continue to be more impressed in her performance, especially with this level of a cast. And it just shows that she is a threat. She is a very good competitor, and I think people are underestimating her, but she's just proving that she does deserve to still be there among these females. Um, but we see that Jordan and Derek both get all of the targets, so they go into a sudden death round, which obviously we've mentioned that Derek wins against Jordan during this.
Yeah, and that was really something to see. I mean, first of all, both of them hit all 12 targets
Mm-hmm.
on the first run. Like, you had to be perfect just to get into a runoff this week. So, congratulations to both players. I thought that maybe 8 would be enough to win, and it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't enough on either um,
No.
side. It was 9 and 12. So, very
Yeah,
well
they
done.
had to do a sudden death round, which obviously the truck was going faster. And Derek was able to pull it off, which was is a very, very big accomplishment because beating Jordan in anything is not easy, especially now that Jordan is, and we've talked about this earlier in the season, but I could tell that Jordan wasn't really trying his hardest in daily challenges because he didn't really need to.
Yeah,
And he probably didn't want to put a big target on himself, but I think he's now at a point where he wants to try to win the dailies because it's going to prevent him from being nominated as a target or whatever it's going to be the next time around. So, hats off to Derek for that. And again, Jordan still did a very, very good job.
yeah, he absolutely did. And I think that was smart from Jordan that now he's at the point of the game that he can turn his skills on because he's going to want to show that you don't want to compete against me. You might go home before you even get to the final. Whereas before it would have been, if Jordan is coming out as the best player, let's keep throwing him in until eventually we find something that he just can't do, which is few and far between for Jordan.
And I also think Jordan is just the type of competitor that like he wants to go to the final with the strongest people, and he kind of has the attitude like, okay, you want to come after me, well, you have to beat me in
Yeah.
order to come, like if you're going to come after me, you're going to have to beat me. And I think he has so much like trust in his abilities as a competitor and as a finalist. He wants to push himself, and that's just the type of competitor that he is, and I think he might be the only one that is like that. But yeah, it's really amazing to see him try his best and really trying to win these dailies to avoid being a target and going into elimination.
Yeah, it absolutely is. I think one of the most untalked about things at the second half of this game, but is that, and I don't know if Jordan is more running to the end of his challenge career if he wants to keep going, but if he wants to keep going, Kyle and Jordan could be like the new Bananas CT.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm personally the belief that if we're to get he, and I think we've talked about this, to me, the GOAT
Yeah.
before CT. So I don't even think that he wants to try to be a banana or a CT because he's pretty much already there.
True.
Um, but moving on from the daily, we see a special appearance from Carl, which is Kara's like alter ego. And Michele and Tori are fighting over being Carl's friend, which I thought was funny.
That was hilarious.
Um, and then we kind of already talked about this, but Tori explains to like explains basically that her and Carl, after so many years them not really getting along, that they're finally in a place where they've put their differences aside and they've actually formed a friendship, which again, I really loved seeing.
Yeah, I love seeing that too, and I think this season maybe it's just bringing out different sides of people, but like the girls that are attached to bananas are so attached to bananas that I think Tori, Cara, and Michele are all kind of seeing a lot that they have in common that they might have not picked up on previous seasons.
Mm-hmm. I think it's because they've basically been forced to get together at that level,
Yeah,
with the house being so divided between the angels and the non-angels. They've like, and I think I've heard this in podcasts that the house was kind of divided into two wings, which was like the old school and then the new school, the
yeah,
eras two or three and four. So they've been, and we know after Polly got eliminated into the era four bedroom. So we've seen that those girls have just been forming really strong bonds, which is nice to see.
yeah, it is. And I think even if it is by necessity, unlike, say, on Ride or Dies, where there was an alliance by necessity, this one could actually be a strong group of friends outside the game and on future seasons.
Yeah,
And for
absolutely.
those of you who aren't picking it up, I'm talking about Johnny and Devin.
We'll have to see how that goes in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so moving on to the bar scene. First of all, we get a relationship between Josh and Corey where it looks like odds are just because Rachel is in the power position. And I make a point in here in my notes that I'm just like, I don't know why Rachel is 100% in the power position. Why is Derek not trying to assess any control that he's got himself? He has every right to vote differently if he wants to. And we just don't really see any discussion in it of potentially Derek even saying, well, what's best for my game is Johnny going home. So too bad, Rachel.
So I think this is because TJ told us at the beginning of this that it ultimately will come down to the opposite sex. So
Okay, that
even if
makes
they were
more
to
sense.
stalemate, it doesn't really matter. It's gonna be so
I
it's
guess I
all
never
up
really
to
picked up on that in the chamber. So
yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah, it's
Um,
all up to whoever is not that's not going into elimination.
okay.
So,
So that
that's why Derek doesn't that's why he said I'm just hanging out here.
that really helps out then. So I guess that explains where I was just gonna go to next, is that it's pretty obvious, at least the way that they're being edited, that we're gonna see Josh and Corey go against each other, who are two players that have done quite a few seasons lately. and have a decent relationship from that experience.
A moment where Josh comes up to Corey and says, like, I love you like family, and Corey responds with, then you better start treating me like family. Because again, Josh's messy political game, I love this person, but like when you're saying that you love somebody like family, that means you would pretty much do anything for them. And we've seen Josh has not really stuck his neck out for Corey at all. He even voted him into elimination.
Yeah,
So I don't know. I just don't think Josh should be talking to people that way.
no, um, but it's Josh. He plays messy. I don't
Did.
think much will ever change.
Yeah.
The only way
Um,
Josh will play a decently controlled game is if Devin and Tori just decide to tell him not, if they can convince him to not do anything and just run everything through them, maybe. But at the same time, after this season, if I'm Tori with numbers in Devin, with numbers in Michele, do I even need to worry about Josh being part of my alliance anymore? I don't think so.
yeah, I mean, it's also interesting. I saw this on an interview that Josh did yesterday, was he talked about that he doesn't really see himself working with the Vacation Alliance after this season. More specific, shut it. More specifically, Devin, he talked about. So I don't know. We'll have to see how that goes. But sorry, you can.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I wouldn't see Josh working with them either. That being said, do if Josh was to come back after playing this messy of a game, do I really see him lasting more than a couple of episodes? Probably not. Ah,
Can you say hi? Can you say hi, Leo? Leo, look. Sorry about that. Thing I wanted to talk about real is when Johnny and talk about how they want to, or how they've resolved their past issues, the island, and the only season we've together was the island. They also did Battle of the Ages 1 together,
you're
which
right.
they just forgot about. That was one where Anissa like broke or something.
Yeah,
Um, and Corey talks to Rachel about how he has yet to benefit from working with her, which I think is an interesting point because Rachel has just been playing a very good political game. And even though she's kind of been exposed as like, even though I told you we're working together, I'm voting you in, she still has pretty much all her bases covered around the house.
yeah, exactly. Um, I it this is I just have to take it kind of at face value. I've never watched The Island, so
Mm-hmm.
it's not available to be watched here.
Oh, really? That's
Yeah,
interesting.
like streaming only starts at Fresh Meat 2
Oh, okay.
just because of licensing.
Mm.
So anything before that that they talk about is kind of over me. The only thing I did have to add is that when I see Rachel saying like, "Oh, but Johnny and I back then had a disagreement, but now he's a different person." Is he really? I don't think
She
so.
she also says that she ignores when Johnny says something that's like the negative things he says because the good outweighs the bad with him. But like again, why are you his bad behavior?
Yeah,
You know? I don't
exactly. I mean, I think Rachel sees Johnny as just a path to $400,000 at this point, and I mean, I can't blame her. That's
Mm-hmm.
life-changing money.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't really have anything else from the club. I don't know
Yeah.
if you do.
Neither do I. Anything? Where did you want to go next?
We didn't have much of a deliberation, but
No.
we all knew what was gonna happen, even if they tried to edit it away, like, oh, here's deliberation.
Yeah.
Nothing happened. we know that Josh and Corey are going to go in against each other. And Josh kind of has like his emotional speech of the season, one of many, about how he's fighting for his family and is going to give all the money to his family and all these things. So it was interesting, but yeah, deliberation was pretty boring this week, I would say.
Yeah, and I'm not surprised. I don't, considering that, like you said, that it has to be Rachel making the decision. Now that you say that and it makes perfect sense, I'm just like, maybe this is a big failure on production standpoint to that's led to a few boring deliberations now,
Mm-hmm.
when effectively you don't have two people having to make a decision, but you just have one with their own interests in the game and nobody else's.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Probably not the best way to do deliberations if we want to make great television, but other than that, we've talked about um, in the deliberation, there's a couple things I wanted to bring up at this point. And that was first, we see Corey on the call back home with Nelson. That was pretty amazing TV to see, even in a different light of not being a competitor. Nelson back on the challenge after everything he's gone through. For those of you who don't know, Nelson was involved in a car accident, and actually a member of the Minnesota Vikings pulled him out of a burning car and saved his life on the side of a highway in Texas. But he's since lost his leg as a result. So um, nice of the challenge to give Nelson that like minute of getting to talk about his recovery to the fans. Even, I mean, he's talking to Corey, but he's effectively giving everybody who's watched the challenge an update as well.
Yeah, I really love this segment too because obviously Nelly T has been a key member of, I would say, era three of the challenge.
Yeah,
Um, and he's been on the last few seasons. So obviously he probably one of the people that would have been in era three,
yeah,
had this not happened. So I really liked how the challenge was able to bring him into season kind of in a way that they could, because obviously when he's recovering from his amputation and like during this part of whenever this was filmed, Nelson didn't have his prosthetic leg yet.
right.
So it was nice to see them bring him in, and I just really enjoyed this segment as well. So just bringing us back to his and Corey's him and Corey's friendship. Obviously we know on Total Madness, Nelson asked to be sent in to let Corey into the game because he needed for his family, and it was really nice to see for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, and yeah, you're right. Now that I think of it, I never really thought of that before, but Nelson probably would have been in this season had he been fit to play prior to almost passing away in a very dangerous car accident. So that was nice. The second other thing that I wanted to comment on is we get a very heart wrenching, not heart wrenching, that's the wrong word, but heartwarming was what I was looking for. Um,
The opposite of
yeah, the
heart-wrenching.
complete opposite. I almost, oh, audience, I had an asthma attack today. I'm kind of not myself. But heartwarming moment between Rachel and Derek in relation to the challenge being a um, leader in LGBT representation on mainstream reality television. I love this. And we get clips back from many, not only Derek and Rachel representing the LGBT community on this season and now in the final third of the game, but we also get past clips from players who weren't on this season or that have represented the LGBT community along the way. Casey and Nani, Frank, Corey Lay, many other names out there. Also, something that I just found interesting when I was doing some research into this is it's true to have such a powerful segment for LGBT representation in this season was just such a good use of editing by production because the challenge is actually the leader in this for reality television. For those of you who don't know, I found a really neat fact. Anissa Ferreira was a out of the closet bisexual on the challenge 1 year before Richard Hatch won Survivor.
Oh, wow. I did not know
So
that.
I believe that makes Anissa the first openly gay, lesbian, bisexual, or transgendered contestant in American reality TV.
Oh, wow. I did not know that. But I also really enjoyed this segment. I'm glad that you brought that up because that community is constantly, like I remember even like watching old Survivor seasons where um if people were part of the LGBT community, they weren't received as kindly and as accepting.
Yeah,
Like one, I don't know, I think it was fans versus favorites that comes up where Chet, I think it
yeah,
was,
Chet.
so somebody on the cast was saying like, "Oh, I've never been friends with a homosexual person before." Just little comments like that that would actually make it on air, even on
Yeah.
CBS. So it's nice to see that the challenge has always been, or
I mean,
MTV.
thankfully he's grown as a person and changed, but season 4 is even worse with one of the most famous Survivor players of all time. So
Mm-hmm.
being Boston Rob.
Yeah, I forgot about that, but yeah, it's always been a place where people are accepted and they're not made, at least. Well, there's also the exception of CT and Adam, which that's a contestant issue.
Yeah,
Um, but I think MTV has done a really good job with representing the community and having those people feel like maybe people at home are watching and saying um like feeling better about coming out or something because they see people that are open part of the community and that being successful and on TV.
exactly.
I don't know. It's great to see. I agree.
And with that, it really leads us into elimination unless there's anything I missed.
Um, didn't oh before nation we have Corey talk about how his daughter had open heart surgeries, like and again his daughter's very young, so he's just saying
And
that
so
like
I just checked my notes just before anybody says in the comments I should add. Anissa was on the real world before Richard won Survivor, not the challenge. Someone is
um
going to tell me, hey, she came to the challenge like 6 months after Survivor Borneo.
but Corey talking about his daughter and like how everything that she's gone through and all the sacrifices that his family has made, like just kind of motivating him to do well in that elimination. And then Tori is helping Josh with positive affirmations,
Yeah.
which I thought was kind of to see. But
Yeah.
have anything else other than that before we go into elimination?
All right. So let's go into the elimination challenge. This was a fun one. We aren't doing a challenge that we've seen before the way physical eliminations commonly are, but we're going back to the first physical elimination since we saw since the boxing challenge that Derek lost.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but so brings it back. I know people in the audience are just clamoring for a physical elimination because all you guys ever do is complain about, oh, this person didn't win a physical elimination, so they don't deserve to be here. Yes, they do.
Well,
All eliminations revolve around different skills.
to be fair, we have seen physical eliminations. I think people want head-to-head contact,
Yeah,
which is different,
right.
but you can't say that the other eliminations that we've seen aren't physical. Like unless
No,
you're sitting on a chair, then I don't know.
you're absolutely right about that too. I'm just tired of
But yeah,
people
I
arguing that unless you've won a Hall Brawl, you don't deserve to be in a final just because their favorite didn't make it to the final.
absolutely. Um, but the elimination's called coming from behind, which I think the players thought was pretty funny as well. And then the players are gonna alternate between playing offense and defense. When you're on defense, you have a short, but you have over an obstacle.
Yeah.
And when you're on offense, you have the longer track, but you don't have an obstacle, so you kind of get to go at full sprint. Defensive player trying to prevent the offensive player from reaching the bell by any means necessary, basically.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, I was a bit confused in this. I really liked watching the challenge, but did they explain properly like how the scoring works?
You get a point if you hit the bell or if you knock your opponent off
Okay,
their
that's what I was confused
like
about was
out of
to
bounds.
I didn't pick up that players were able to score on defense. So I was like, where is Corey getting all of these points from?
It's
I
not like a
mean,
balls in where
yeah.
you have to score a point.
I mean,
Um,
I'm glad to a way I was like, that's kind of odd because then it didn't require players to be able to succeed in both positions.
mhm.
At the same time, I mean, good for Josh because would he want to have had to do this 4 more times?
Yeah, I actually really like this elimination. Again, it was a new one that we haven't seen, but I think this is something I would like to do
Yeah,
because I've ran track in high school. I've done running before, so I think this would be something I would be pretty good at. The jumping over the hurdle part, we saw Josh kind of all of his momentum do it, like he would take quick steps before he jump over it, when in reality you shouldn't lose all your momentum while you do that. You should actually just try to take a bigger step to get to the
yeah,
top of the platform and then off of the platform. But like we've basically said, Cole demolished this. I don't think that he would have lost in this elimination to anybody on the season 40 cast, if I'm being honest.
yeah. I don't think
Um,
so either, which made me disappointed. I mean, I would have gladly had Josh stay in the game to see Corey just absolutely destroy bananas at this point.
yeah, I wrote that down too. I said I would have loved to see Bananas and Corey going against each other. Um, Josh, this was a very poor showing for him, this elimination,
Yeah,
because I I don't know, and I don't want to be mean, but he's now 1-7 in eliminations, and it's just crazy to me that he has pretty good endurance. He can swim, he can do puzzles, he has strength, but he's just never able to put all those things together.
yeah,
And he is just so bad at like eliminations, and I think it's just because of his lack of coordination and just like raw athletic, which I don't know, because we've seen like Michelle was talking about how she was never do sports growing up. So it's not even like that if you like you have to do sports to be coordinated. I think he
yeah,
just has to work on his balance and his coordination to be able to succeed in eliminations because it's a lot of under pressure and being able to like keep your head in the game, I guess.
yeah. You're absolutely right. Um, but if Josh is 1-7, odds are not much is going to change. So
And I think it's it's truly his lack of coordination that
yeah,
is what's preventing him from making a final. And I don't know, we'll just have to see if anything changes in the future.
exactly. All right. So who's your players of the week?
Well, I do want to talk with our
So,
targets.
oh yeah, go ahead.
Corey selected Jenny, Michelle, and Aviv, um, which I thought were interesting choices.
Yeah,
I wonder if Rachel would have been an option if you would have selected um Rachel over Aviv or Michelle. I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either. I mean, it's hard to say because could he have wanted to get rid of one of Banana's Angels? Yes. Could they be editing it to show us Corey talking about Michelle threw me in more than is what's real just because we know that Rachel's not an option, so he throws in Michelle over throwing in
Hmm.
Cara or Tori? Also, very possibly. The only people that really know that is Corey and whoever is in production deciding what makes the episode and what doesn't.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's an interesting thing to think about because who knows who he would have if Rachel was also an option there.
Yeah,
Um, but also like you have to think about it. The reason why Michelle has selected you as a target, she's been into 3 eliminations.
yeah,
Cara hasn't been in since she had to go earlier this season.
right.
So she would have been in elimination. Maybe she would have to throw you in.
Exactly.
But for my player of the week, my male, I'm gonna say Derek
I have to agree.
is um really his performance basically showing everybody he is a real threat to win this. Um,
Absolutely.
beat Jordan, which is never easy. And I think this has been mentioned before, but pretty much every season that Derek's done, he has gone home very early, with the exception of, I think, Battle of the Seasons. All the other ones he's gone in like first or second. So
Yeah.
it's really interesting and really him come back and do very well this season.
Yeah, completely agree with you there. Um, Such a big upset win by Derek, but to see him be able to pull that off, he is just as big of a threat to win the final as, say, a Jordan or a Kyland at this point. We're almost at the end of the game.
Mm-hmm.
So couldn't agree more. What a excuse me. What about your female player of the week?
I selected Rachel because even if you like she hasn't been my favorite this season. I mean, not competitive. I think she's kind of a better Josh team, I guess you could say. She's she's in some type of alliance or agreement with every single male at this point. And I think she really improved her political game after going into 2 eliminations. And again, she's the only Era 1 person there.
Yeah,
But I don't know, I think she's doing a good job politically and physically with
yeah,
her really good showing at the daily.
that's a great pick. So I selected Cara this week.
Mm-hmm.
I thought obviously Rachel definitely dominated that daily, so can't agree more.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason I went with Kara is I found that this was really probably the most Kara heavy episode of the whole season, and we really start to see where Kara's political game is going without Polly so early on in the season, and the fact that she's still here and that it's all these big personalities, a lot of players she has history with, and she's able to say, I've had a history with Loyal, and she's gone. I've had a history with Bananas, and I'm able to now put aside anything I've had with Tori over the past few seasons or any animosity between Michelle and I for referring to um what was it, Orange Jacket or something in
Orange
Battle
shirt.
Orange Shirt, yeah, in
Yeah.
Battle for a New Champion. And decide that, you know what, even though we've had our moments of competitiveness in the past, that Kara's been able to show this week that she can work with those two girls and really make a run at this final. And if she gets to the final, Cara Maria could be a 3-time champion.
Yeah, I think Kara has played a very good game politically. That, like you said, she a lot of enemies coming in,
Yeah,
starting with Laurel and Bananas and just everything that she's gone through this season. And her like, being here, still fighting after Polly's gone, and being able to avoid the elimination ring is I think a good thing for her. I think that's a great pick for sure.
all right. So I mean, I don't think based on this episode we really need to ask, but who's your male losing player of the week?
You might be shocked, but it's Josh.
Yeah,
His performance in the elimination, pretty much a very lackluster season from Josh
yeah,
competitively. He has not improved his political game and it's continuing to be
it's
his
got worse.
downfall. Yeah, it's gotten worse. It's just continues to be his downfall. being friends and allies
I
with
mean, when
everybody, but
I sound critical, but when I got into this show, I started cheering for Josh in Spice Lies and Allies after Michelle went home. So
mm,
I am not against him in the challenge. I'm not against him on the season. He just hasn't had a good season. And he has once again built so many relationships outside the game that he needs to just know when to pick one. And is he going to work with the CBS people, or is he going to work with Johnny, or is he going to work with the Miami crowd
yeah, I think like
or
as
the
a
Vacation
character
Alliance? I
on the
mean, he has
show,
essentially four different routes there. And if he sits in between all four of them, he's going to have a lot of people angry at him every single season that he's on.
as a character and like a person, like you said, on the season, I like him. It's just that he plays the game very almost infuriating.
Yeah.
Like, Josh, have you not learned every other season? The outcome keeps happening to you. So again, I it's not him personally, but his political game and also the way that 'cause he's training so hard to be like but it's train on different next time.
Yeah.
For my female, I didn't think anybody did particularly bad in this episode for the females, but I had for the one I picked was just Aviv
Mm,
because she was the only one that didn't get any targets, and obviously we know that it wasn't an easy challenge. So I don't think bad showing for her, but
yeah.
more importantly why I picked her is I think that she's kind of the lowest woman on the Angels totem pole.
Yeah.
Um so I think that
Aviv,
if
you still got time to cross the floor.
yeah, I think if Aviv would
get
have
get
aligned
those
herself,
three out.
yeah, I don't know, if she would have kind of worked with someone like Cara, I think she would had maybe better chances because I think if for some reason someone like Derek goes into elimination and he nominates Jenny, Aviv, and um Rachel,
Yeah.
and Bananas has to pick who's
Especially if it's a week where Tori is the winner and not Rachel.
yeah, exactly. If Bananas has to pick
Or
of those
maybe it's a
three
puzzle and
girls,
Michelle's the winner.
he's gonna pick probably Rachel first, then Jenny, then Aviv. So I
Yeah,
think she's kind of just the lowest on that side of the house.
exactly. So I agree with you that this no one did that bad this week on the women's perspective. So it was a hard pick.
Mhm.
Which leads me to something that I have not done all this year, but I went with Tori.
Mhm.
The reason I put Tori in this losing player of the week, really, like I said, nothing really went bad for anyone in on the women's side. So it came down to in the daily, she just had a bad strategy. And she was only jumping at half the targets, which if you only try one of the things that I had a professor that told me back in university, if you just try to get a D minus, you're gonna get an F. And if she's only trying to hit 6 out of 12, I didn't think that that was the way the challenge was intended, and it's why she came tied for last. She was very lucky that Aviv is like 4'8" or something, and therefore 5'2" or whatever Aviv's height is, she was just too small to get out to those targets, and that's pretty much the only reason that Tori wasn't thrown into this elimination.
Yeah, I think
Oh,
that's a pretty
sorry,
good
Tori was a is a female. It's the only reason why Tori doesn't have a disadvantage.
I think Tori is expected her to do better in this just because she does have a lot of strength and she's also very tall.
Yeah,
And I do think it's interesting because like you said, her just choosing to not even go towards other targets, it what's it's not going to hurt you to go for them. The worst thing that's going to happen is you're not going to get them.
yeah,
And if you only try to do the minimum, you end up doing sometimes worse than the bare minimum. So I think that's a pretty good pick.
All right, so that brings us to the end of the episode. Thanks to everyone for listening. We'll be back, I guess, in like just over 2 weeks, probably on like the Monday or something, whenever you're free over the
Mm-hmm.
weekend or on Monday to record. I'm gonna have to get off a plane Saturday night and then binge watch the episode that I've missed because last time I checked, they don't have the challenge in the middle of the ocean. And I will
Yeah.
be somewhere on a cruise ship in between the Dominican Republic and the British Virgin Islands while this is airing.
Well, I hope you have a great time on your vacation, and we're gonna
Thanks.
have to hear all about that when we talk next.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully it goes well. We'll definitely let you know. And I also, for when we get into we'll save this for the final, but I have something in mind based on tonight's discussion that I'm going to bring up to you
Okay.
before we get there that I think will be kind of a fun finale preview.
All right. Well, I'm excited for that. Thank you everybody for listening, and we'll see you in a little bit over 2 weeks.
Yep. See you then. And happy Thanksgiving to our American viewers.
Oh, yes.
Bye.